it just gets worse. I don't know. I'm confused. I don't care. I don't care who she is. That is such an Aelin Galathinius thing to do. How stupid could I be? Huh? Now I understand why people say that the ending of this book is wild. What the freaking heck? It's time. Today I'm going to be reading Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood, and also House of Sky and Breath. I'm so excited. As you guys probably know, last year I picked up a fantasy book for the first time in my life and I fell in love with the fantasy world. And a few months after that first book, I was peer pressured into picking up ACOTAR, which I am forever grateful for because it did become one of my favorite series in the world. And because I loved it so much, I also picked up Throne of Glass and read that entire series last year as well. And of course I was obsessed, so it only makes sense that I now have to pick up Crescent City 1 and 2. To let you guys know how this video is going to work, it's very simple. Part 1, reading House of Earth and Blood, no spoilers. Whether you have or haven't read this book, you can watch part 1, nothing will be spoiled, and maybe based on my thoughts and reactions, you can decide whether you want to pick up this book. Part 2 of this video will be the spoiler section of me reading this book and discussing my theories, my predictions, my thoughts, feelings, all that goes along with that for the first book. And finally, part 3 of this video will be a spoiler-filled reading vlog of me reading the second book, because I feel like it's very hard to talk about the second book or third book or fourth book in the series without sharing any spoilers. So part 3 will be spoiler filled as well. Future Rachel will come in and tell you when the spoilers are going to begin, so make sure you're paying attention if you don't want spoilers, because I can only help you so much. In terms of like first impressions slash what I'm thinking before I even start, I honestly don't know much about this series. I have tried to avoid spoilers at all costs. The only thing I can think of right now is just like, I know the two main love interests, but that's all I know. I do know that at the end of this book there's like some crazy really cool ending, but I don't know what that is, and I'm so glad I haven't been spoiled for that. All I know is that it is an urban fantasy, which is very different from Sarah J Maas's other books. From what I've gathered, it seems like this book takes place in more of like a modern type of world where there are like high-rise buildings and technology, phones, cameras. So that'll be very interesting. Honestly, urban fantasy doesn't appeal to me as much as like a normal fantasy where they're in like castles and it's all very fairy tale-esque, but I am intrigued to see the difference. And the only other thing I think I know about this book is that there's some sort of like mystery plot line. I've seen a lot of people say there's almost like a Criminal Minds aspect to it where they're trying to solve some sort of mystery. I have read the blurb, so if you read that, you'll obviously know a little bit more information, but I think I'm going to leave this intro here. I'm going to start this book and I'll check in with you guys when I actually have some thoughts to share. Okay, we have our first little update. I'm like 150-ish pages in, and my thoughts so far are: 1, I'm really enjoying it. I'm having so much fun. Secondly, I really thought it would be harder for me to understand this world because I've heard so many people say that Crescent City is just so confusing when you start reading it, because it just kind of feels like you get thrown in there and the world building is just like difficult to follow. But I have found it surprisingly, I wouldn't say easy, like there's still a lot of things that don't make sense to me, but it's not as crazy and difficult as I thought it would be. I'm kind of just like going with the flow, I guess, because I'm like, I know things will make sense as it progresses, so I'm kind of just trying to go with it. But for the most part, I would say it's actually okay. I think I understand the world and the rules and like the society and like the types of people that exist here. I feel like one thing that I think makes it easier is that it feels a lot more like our world compared to ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, that type of thing. Because in those ones, there's no technology. Everything is just really, really different from obviously how we live our lives, which is fun. I really like that because like ultimate escapism. But at least in this one, it's like there's still like fae and different magical creatures, but they go to college and they get normal jobs. Well, not normal jobs. Some of them have normal jobs, I guess, but like they go to college and they get a job and they move out from their parents' house and they have a phone and they can call and text their friends. And that just feels easier for me to understand. Yes, it is still very different. And there's a lot of names being thrown around that I'm like, what the heck are we talking about here? But apart from that, I think we kind of get it. One thing that is kind of a negative thing for me right now is that there is something that's mentioned on the blurb that doesn't really happen until probably like, I think it's like around 80 pages into the book, which in the grand scheme of things is only 10% through the book. But I just feel like if it wasn't included on the blurb, it would have been such a good, almost like plot twist, I guess. If you don't want to be spoiled for this plot twist and you don't want to read the blurb, let me explain it like this. Like I said, this book has a mystery element to it and it is a murder mystery. And if you read the back of the book, you know who dies and like what killed them. If you don't read the back of back of the book, you kind of get that part of the book as a surprise. And I would so recommend going into it with that being a surprise, because I just think it would be way more like shocking. But since I already knew who was gonna die, as soon as you're like introduced to them, you're kind of like, oh, I already know this character is gonna die. I don't know, I feel like if it happened on the first 10 pages, yeah, include it in the blurb. Even first 20 pages, sure, include it on the blurb. But if it's 80 pages in, I just feel like it would have been so much more fun to find that out for myself rather than read the synopsis on the back. But I think that's all I have to say, so I'll update you guys next time I have something to share, I guess. Okay guys, we have made it to part 3 called The Canyon. I am really loving this book. I have been adding a lot of thoughts to my spoiler section because obviously I can talk about exactly what's happening and like what my predictions are, but I don't have many updates to share with you guys in this portion, like spoiler free, apart from just I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun. In the past few chapters especially, we have gained a lot of understanding about, or at least a lot more understanding than we had previously, about Hunt's kind of background and his trauma, because what is a Sarah J Maas book without main characters that are literally full of trauma, which fair enough. But yeah, I'm just really enjoying getting to know Hunt a lot better, and I guess Bryce as well. Hunt and Bryce kind of started off as enemies. They were really annoyed at each other. They didn't want to spend time together. There was a lot of forced proximity with their, I don't want to say relationship, but just like friendship, relationship, their interactions as a whole. They were all just very forced. And obviously as time has progressed and they've spent more and more time together, you can actually just see them building a friendship. And although I do obviously think that they're gonna fall in love, because like that is just the most obvious pipeline for this plot to take, it's really cool to see them becoming friends first, because I feel like in a lot of books where there is romance, you kind of miss that friendship point, and I feel like that's a much more realistic kind of pathway for romance to take. Like people just become friends first and then we'll slowly kind of find that romance portion of their relationship, I guess. I will say Hunt was really annoying me earlier in the book because he was just so like judgmental, but I feel like he's slowly coming around, which I did expect, like of course. I'm just having so much fun, guys. I did not expect to love this book as much as I am. We're almost halfway through, which is wild. I've been reading this book for 3 days and I wouldn't be surprised if I finish it in the next like 2 days, because it is just phenomenal. I'm so intrigued to see what happens. We are almost at page 500. I just reached chapter 54, so page 495. So we're definitely over halfway now, which is kind of exciting, but also I feel like there's just so much more that we need to know, which does make sense, I guess. I feel like especially in Sarah J Maas books, there's going to be so much that happens obviously in the last half, but specifically probably in the last 100 pages. I'm almost like nervous, but like at the same time giddy to see what we're going to find out, because I have some theories that I've discussed in the spoiler section, but apart from like my very few theories that I do have, there's just so much that I have no idea like what is going to happen. And I just know there's going to be plot twists. I just know there's going to be so many secrets uncovered, but also it's the first book in a series, so maybe we won't have a lot uncovered. I don't know. I feel like the last 100 pages, although we have found out some more interesting information, I would say it's probably been my like least favorite part of the book so far. It's just kind of dragged a little bit. We are getting a little bit more romance slowly. It's definitely like a slow burn, I would say, which I thoroughly enjoy. I love a slow burn, so not complaining about that. But for some reason, I'm just like not as into it as I was earlier, because I feel like every update that I've given you guys so far, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm loving it. I'm so intrigued. It's been so interesting the whole time. But I will say it has like slowed down a little bit for me personally in the past little bit. But like I said, I feel like there's going to be so much that happens during the rest of this book, so I'm fine with having a little slow section, you know. But I will say this is definitely looking like a 5-star read for me, no questions asked. Like it has just been so good so far. But yeah, this is how much I've read. This is how much I've got to go. If you guys like the like taking care of trope, I personally love it. This book has it and it's so sweet. I just feel like the whole taking care of someone, that kind of trope is just so wholesome, and it just shows how much the character just really cares for the other character, and it usually happens before they've kind of admitted any sort of feelings or care for them. It's kind of just like actions speak louder than words, and it's really sweet. I'm stressed. last night with 100 pages to go. I really badly wanted to stay up and read it, but I knew it would like take me probably a couple hours to get through the last 100 pages, and I just like knew I couldn't stay up that long because I was already so tired, so I had to put the book down. But it felt like a literal crime to put the book down and go to sleep. Like, so much is happening right now. It's actually crazy, and I think my like whole, like everything that I predicted to happen, so wrong. And it's so embarrassing because the whole way through I was like, I reckon this, and I talked about it all in the spoiler part, and I think I was completely wrong, and that's so annoying. But in saying that, in the 100 pages that I've just read, so like I guess the last 200 pages of the book as a whole, so much has already happened, and I'm like, if so much has already happened, like what is going to happen in this last 100 pages? Because I feel like in Sarah J Maas books, like the last 100 pages is like really where it goes down, and I'm just like, what is going to happen? Like, I'm so I'm gonna read this now and finish it, and we will see what happens. Classic Sarah J Maas, coming up with a resolution to a problem, but like a resolution that you didn't even know was possible until she just like pops it in there. Like, you're like, how are they gonna solve this? And then Sarah J Maas is like, some crazy thing that we've never heard of has just popped up, and it's like, this saved the day. Turns out there was this huge secret you didn't know about the whole time. Classic Miss Sarah Jeanette Maas. She got us again. Got me again. I don't know why I'm even surprised at this point. No. I thought the big stuff was done. Every time I think the like major conflict is over, it just gets worse. If there's not a sliver of a happy ever after, I'm suing. Even just a little bit of a happy ever after, please. My heart actually can't take this. 10 pages left. I feel like a lot of questions have been answered, but at the same time, I feel like it's definitely not like a conclusion, which makes sense because it's the first book in a series. Like, there's obviously more books to come, but I'm also so intrigued to know what the rest of the books are going to be about. I'm home. Stop, I'll cry. You're gonna end it like that. Wow. I can't believe this is over. I don't really know what my thoughts are right now. Like, I don't even know what to say. I think I need to process for a little bit, but I will say this is easily 5 stars. It was just so interesting from start to finish. The last 200 pages, that was like an absolute whirlwind. Every time I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. It did end on somewhat of a happily ever after. Like, we got some closure, we got some like rest from the emotional damage and destruction that this book caused. But wow, I can't believe there's like a whole nother like 800 pages to read now, but I loved this. Future editing Rachel here to jump in and say the spoiler free segment is over. I'm about to jump into my spoiler review. If you haven't read this book and you want to and you don't want anything spoiled for you, please stop watching now. But thank you so much for watching up until this point, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Let's jump into the spoilers. So I'm like 200 pages into this book, and the only thing I really have to say right now in this like spoiler section is, why do we like Danica so much? Like, also, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Danica. I read it as Danica, but I also listen to part of the audiobook and they say Danica, and I always assume the audiobook is correct, so I'm gonna go with Danica. But if it is Danica, I apologize. I just don't understand what Bryce sees in Danica, apart from her being like kind of like, oh, she's my first college friend and we were like roommates and stuff. Like, I understand that that's like a type of friendship. I feel like once you live with someone, it's just like a different level of friendship. However, Danica just doesn't seem that nice. It feels like she walks all over Bryce. It feels like she's kind of just like bossy and kind of like mean girl-ish to me. And I'm not sure if I'm just like making that up or interpreting it wrong, but I just don't understand why Danica is kind of being portrayed as some sort of like hero and like, oh my gosh, it's so sad that she died and she was killed, because it is sad that she died and it is sad that she was killed. However, I feel like it's hard for me as a reader to feel bad for Bryce about losing her friend when her friend friend was just like not that nice to her. It's just like, why do I care about this person? They were just like so bossy and kind of like a bad influence on you. Like they kind of just, yes, Danica was like fun because she was like, yeah, let's go like clubbing and partying and rah, rah, rah. It literally says that like before Bryce met Danica, she didn't like get in trouble at all. And then after that, she literally has like, not a criminal record, but she's gotten in trouble for a bunch of things. So I don't know. I'm just not convinced that I even like Danica, and therefore it's just hard for me to feel bad about that whole murder situation. Also, I just don't understand why Danica has been such a big part of this story so far, and then they just like killed her off. It almost feels wrong, and I almost feel like there needs to be more to the story than that. Like I feel like Danica is going to have some sort of bigger part of this story, because why would you write this whole story in the first 100 pages or so kind of revolve around Bryce and Danica, and then you just like kill Danica off? It just doesn't feel like it adds up to me, so I feel like there's got to be more to the story. I honestly feel like maybe Danica's not dead. Maybe she like faked her own death somehow, even like glamoured it to look a certain way or something, and escaped. And I honestly am like, why would Sarah J Maas like make Danica not really seem like that nice of a person if she wanted us to feel bad for Bryce? And maybe Danica is actually not going to end up being a very good person. Like what if she has framed her own death, she's actually evil, she's actually working for the other side, and she's trying to like get herself out of that situation basically, and like pretend she died so that she can go kind of do something sneaky or evil. That is honestly my main theory right now, and obviously it could be so wrong, but I don't know, there just seems like there's more to the story with Danica than it can't just end there. Like her life just can't end there. I feel like there's got to be more. I just got to page 326. Hunt just went to see the oracle, and the oracle kind of like tells you your future or like can answer your questions. And it said, do yourself a favor, keep well away from Bryce Quinlan. What did the freaking oracle tell Bryce? And we know that whatever the oracle told Bryce 12 years ago made her really upset, but we don't know what it is, and I'm so intrigued. I just want to know, what did the oracle tell her? I literally don't even have a guess. Page 340, 341. Bryce and Hunt are like interrogating, questioning Briggs, who up until this point we don't like know that much about. We know that Danica didn't like him. We know that he's kind of like this big villain. He's almost like a rebel leader, I guess. And we just found out, or at least like Briggs has just said, and it's obviously hard because you don't know if he's telling the truth or not, but I like think he is telling the truth. But he's basically just said that he really liked Danica, that they met up and they had discussions, and I don't know if they're like technically allies, but they definitely weren't enemies like Bryce thought. Like Bryce thought that Danica was terrified of Briggs, and Briggs is like, no, we like hung out, we chatted, I really admire her, I really like her. Like I said earlier, I predicted that Danica is bad in some way. And although this hasn't technically confirmed that theory, it definitely is kind of hinting that way. It's at least confirming that there is way more to Danica than Bryce realized that she knew. Like Bryce fully thought Danica was like her best friend, she knew everything, and she definitely didn't. I feel like Danica's got a lot of secrets, and I'm just waiting for them to unfold. Another piece of evidence that further proves my point that I don't like Danica. She was never a good friend, and there's just something about her that is just not good news. Hunt and Bryce are having this conversation about this guy called Flynn, I think. And Hunt is like, there's something going on between you two. Have you guys like hooked up in the past? And Bryce is like, no, but I did have like a major crush on him when I was growing up, like when I was a teenager. But then one night when me and Danica were like out at the clubs, we bumped into Flynn, and Danica went home with Flynn. And obviously, girl code. Like Danica being Bryce's best friend, of course she would have known about this like huge crush that Bryce had on Flynn, but she still went home with him. That is just not cool. It just confuses me why Bryce was like so obsessed with her, because Bryce is just like, thinks she's the greatest person ever. And I'm like, literally, apart from being loyal, like what value did Danica bring to your life, Bryce? Please let me know, because toxic people are not welcome to stay in our lives, and you are letting her walk all over you. But my prediction still stands, and I still think that Danica is going to have some further part of this story. Like she is going to come back or something. Okay guys, we have another update. It's also another day later. I think we're on day 4. Either way, Hunt and Bryce just accused Danica's mum of murdering Danica, and she was like, absolutely I did not. And they were having this chat about it, and her mum was like, I wasn't trying to kill her at all. I was trying to protect her because she stole The horn. So now we know, well, Bryce is refusing to believe it, but we know that she stole the horn now, which I think is just very interesting because obviously they're looking for the horn whilst trying to figure out this murder thing. But what if Danica is alive and she has the horn with her? I have no idea where she is or like why she took it, but it's just kind of further confirming my theory that Danica is alive and she somehow kind of framed her own death so that maybe she could escape with this horn, because it's just too much of a coincidence in my mind that the horn is missing and Danica stole it. Again, if I'm wrong, I'm just gonna sound like an idiot, but it's kind of fun to have these little predictions, so we'll see. Also, we're over halfway now, so that's kind of fun. I just finished chapter 66 and that was a freaking doozy. Like, that was so much happened. Basically, Bryce went down to the river because she wanted to find out who was like selling the drug. What is it called? Like I forgot what the word is, Skype or something? Synth. But she found out that it was the Viper Queen and she was like shocked because she was like, oh my gosh, she lied to me the whole time. And then Hunt is there and she's like, what the heck is Hunt doing there? Turns out Hunt already knew that the Viper Queen had the drug, and he also knew way more information, and he's known for like a week and he didn't tell Bryce, which is so frustrating. And obviously Bryce was so mad because he has obviously pretended that he didn't know about it for the past like week. Second of all, the past like week is really when they've been the most like romantic and like the most like in love with each other. Before, when they were enemies, I feel like it wouldn't have hurt so bad if he was lying to her or like holding things back. But the fact that they like really like each other and they've kind of expressed those feelings to each other now and they've been really like opening up to each other, and then she found out he's lying to her or like holding information back, like that would be so infuriating. Hunt said that he didn't want to tell her because he knew it would hurt her feelings, but at the same time, like, you can't just like hold back information like that. So I'm kind of mad at Hunt for that, but I also can understand where he's coming from. But also, this information was basically that Danica was getting high on this really dangerous drug, and then apparently when she was really high this night, she basically lost control and then turned against her pack, killed them, and then killed herself. I still feel like this information doesn't like quite add up, because like Danica was texting Bryce like right up until it happened, really, like right up until a few minutes before, wasn't she? And so like if she was high, like surely Danica would have picked up on it either with like texts or something. I just don't believe this information. Lots of thoughts running through my mind, but we officially have under 200 pages to go. I'm 3/4 of the way through, still literally loving it so much. I'm so intrigued to find out what's gonna happen. What is wrong with Bryce to continue to sacrifice herself in place of others in multiple situations? Literally 3 pages ago she was like, I hate Hunt, I can't trust him, he's awful, and now she's like, I will sacrifice my life for him. Make up your freaking mind, girly. Also, you've known him for literally 2 months. Like, maybe let's not sacrifice our lives for someone that we've known for like 1 to 2 months, you know? Also, everyone just found out who Bryce is, like who her father is, and therefore who that makes her. And Hunt was like it's fair enough, because she was so mad at him for holding back all of his secrets and like not telling her the whole truth, and all this time she's had a very, very large secret from him. So touche, Mr. Hunt. The freaking slideshow of the photos that Hunt has taken. Stop. I'm in the last 100 pages. Pretty sure my prediction about Danica being alive was completely wrong, so that's so embarrassing. But I don't know. Like, it would have just made, I think, so much sense, but I guess I was wrong. I definitely didn't pick up on like who the real bad guy was, and I also definitely did not guess at all that Bryce was like the real horn, I guess. But now I've got like 80 or 90 pages to go. We know how Danica and her pack died because they were murdered. We know who it was. We know where the horn is because it's literally Bryce. So like what is this last 80-90 pages going to be? You know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen here? The only thing I can think that might happen is that Bryce goes through, what is it called? Like the process that you have to go through to like be not immortal. What's the, where you like live forever kind of thing, or like live for a very long time? Is it called the fall? I don't know how I've read like 700 pages and I still don't know what certain things are called. I've read about these things like 20 times and I still can't remember what they are. But I'm thinking maybe that's what this last 100 pages is, because like what else is going to happen? I feel like that's like the one big thing that has been kind of hinted at that we haven't like figured out yet. One of my issues with Sarah J Maas books is that when a character dies, there's like a 50-50 chance that they're gonna come back, and you just never know. So it's like, do I get heartbroken when a character that I love dies, or do I just like assume that they're gonna come back to life? Because either way I'm probably gonna be disappointed Like, I'll probably get it wrong and be disappointed. Like, at the end of chapter 90, basically we get told that Bryce is dead. But then at the start of chapter 91, you find out she's not dead. So, like, if I have heart issues, I'm suing Sarah J. Maas. You're literally kidding me. We have less than 40 pages left, and she's like, I'm gonna make the drop. I am gonna make the drop. I thought the big stuff was done. Every time I think the, like, major conflict is over, it just gets worse. Hunt is almost dead. Bryce is about to make the drop. Rune is trying to go and find her. You're telling me that you're gonna make the drop and end the book in the next 40 pages. If there's not a sliver of a happy ever after, I'm suing. Even just a little bit of a happy ever after, please. My heart actually can't take this. If she does this drop by herself, I'll scream. So Danica is dead, but she is anchoring the drop. Huh? Danica had a small kernel of energy left, the Underking said, a bit of self that remained. Maybe I was kind of right. I said that she wasn't dead, and it says that she has a bit of self that remained. So I had this much correct. I was this much right. She's making the freaking drop by herself. No way. Bryce's power is a decimal point above the Autumn King's. I freaking love that. That is like spite at its finest. A decimal point. I love that so much. I thought you were dead, Rune said. Like 10 effing times I thought you were dead. Same, Rune. Same. I don't care if I'm called Prince or Starborn or the Chosen One or any of that. The only thing I want to be called right now is your brother, if you'll have me. That's so cheesy but so cute. I finished House of Earth and Blood, I think like 2 days ago now. And yesterday I read a romance book kind of as a bit of a palate cleanser. Just to firstly read something simple. Reading a contemporary romance book after reading Crescent City was so mind-blowingly different. Like I was just like, wow, everything is so simple. Everything makes so much sense. But it was just kind of nice to not have to think about what I was reading. But now that I've had a couple of days, I think I am ready to move on to House of Sky and Breath, which I'm really excited about. This is also huge. I decided to get this one from my library actually, and it is kind of beat up. I literally have no idea what this is about. I have no idea what's going to happen in this. I feel like House of Earth and Blood kind of finished things up fairly well. Like obviously it didn't answer every single question I had, but it had a pretty good conclusion. It wasn't like a huge cliffhanger, but there definitely are questions I want answered. There are characters I want to know more about. There are relationships that I think might develop in this book. Everyone says the end of this book specifically is like wild, so of course I'll record my reaction to that. Let us begin. The prologue of this is so confusing because it talks about a bunch of characters that we've never heard about. You start reading it and you're like, who the heck is Sophie? I know that she's a Thunderbird and she has a brother and they're escaping, and then she got caught but her brother got away, I think, but they caught her and they were like, tell us your secrets, and she's like, I'm not telling you. And so they're like, okay, well, we're gonna chuck you overboard attached to like weights so that you sink to the bottom of the sea and you die. And so they did. And then the prologue ends and you're like, huh? And then we start part 1, which is called The Chasm, and we get to see Hunt and Bryce again, which is great. We also know that Bryce has a new job at a different kind of like art, like archive type thing. I don't even know. And Hunt is still working a similar job to what he was working before, and now he is second in command. So like all seems well, except then we find out that Hunt and Bryce are like refusing to make their relationship official until winter solstice. They're not being a couple, but like they are being a couple. They're literally living together. And so I'm kind of like, what is the point of that? The only reason I can think of as to why they're like, we're not a couple, is basically Sarah J. Maas was like, we need some sort of like romantic tension. We need some like slow burn angst happening. And if I don't make Hunt and Bryce have this weird agreement to not like actually be together, they can have that like angst and tension until she builds up some other relationship, which I'm assuming will probably be Rune, like whoever Rune's love interest will be, which I'm thinking it will just be the girl that he is engaged to, like his like arranged marriage situation, which I'm so excited because I love it when there's like an arranged marriage and the two people who are arranged to be married don't really want to like each other because it's like arranged, and they're like, I don't want someone choosing my partner, but then they fall in love anyway. So I'm hoping and praying that that is who he's going to fall in love with. Also, speaking of arranged marriage, Bryce has been betrothed to some guy, I don't remember his name, but they're literally cousins. Sorry? They're literally cousins. What do you mean they're engaged? Like, huh? That was not necessary. They didn't have to be cousins. Like, I understand that we're not supposed to be rooting for them to be together, but like, you didn't have to make them cousins for me to not root for them, because I'm already rooting for Hunt and Bryce. Bryce is still basically in love with Hunt, and Hunt is still basically in love with Bryce, even though they refused to make it official. But then also we have Ethan come into the mix, who has been kicked out of his pack, and we also find out that Ethan has always had a thing for Bryce, but Ethan was just getting mad at Hunt for having a thing for Bryce because Connor had a thing for Bryce. Why does Sarah J Maas do this thing? She did it in Throne of Glass 2. The main female character, every single boy around them falls in love with her. And like, I get it, they're beautiful and they are powerful and they're freaking cool as heck, but like, it's not realistic to make just like so many guys fall in love with the same character, because now we know that Bryce is going to end up with Hunt. But so far we've already had Connor in love with Bryce, obviously Hunt now, kind of Flynn a little bit too, if she would have let that happen. I think this Prince arranged marriage situation, and he doesn't really love her, but like, he still is trying to be with her. And now Ethan. Like, we don't need that many. Anyways, I'm still very confused at the whole Sophie situation. We also found out that Sophie was somehow friends with Danica, and I'm so confused as to how Danica is continuing to show up in this next book, even though like, we were so done with her in the last book. We got so much closure with the Danica situation at the end of the last book, and she's just showing up again here, like indirectly. I don't know, I'm confused, but I'm gonna keep reading. I think I'm like 150 pages in, so I'd love to make it to at least 200 pages today, because that would mean I'm a quarter of the way through. But if I can make it further, that would be even better. So we'll see. That was a long update. It's just been a crazy start to this book. I thought this lighting would be cute because it's like cozy, but it just looks kind of awful. It is currently like 7 p.m. and I think I mentioned to you guys when I gave you my update that my goal was to get to page 200, because that would be a quarter of the way through. And I actually ended up getting to part 2, The Abyss, which was page 275, which is amazing. A little bit further than I thought. And then I didn't read any more this morning, but this afternoon I've picked it up again, and I've probably read for a few hours this afternoon now that I'm thinking about it. And I am now officially past the halfway mark, page 447, chapter 42. And I don't really know what my thoughts are right now. Like, I have thoughts. At this current point in time, I don't think I'm loving it as much as I liked the first one. And I feel like the main reason I'm not loving this one quite as much right now is because I just don't feel as attached to the characters. And although I really like the characters in this book, it just doesn't give me that same feeling, like that really true found family feeling that the other series have given me. And I can see the potential that this has to have a really great found family aspect to it, but I just don't feel like I'm quite there yet. We obviously have a lot of focus on Bryce, Hunt, and I guess also Rune as well. But at the same time, I just feel like in all of the other books that I've read by Sarah J Maas, we just get such a well-rounded cast of characters, and you get to know them so well. And you're slowly getting to know these characters more and more as the book progresses, but I'm just like not fully sold yet. I'm hoping by the end of this book I am, and I'm like in love with them all, because like I said, there is potential, and I feel like we're slowly building more and more onto these characters' storylines, I guess. But yeah, right now it's just like not giving what I really want. I think also the other issue that I'm having with this one right now, or like the only critique I can really think of right now, it's just kind of boring right now. It is like the middle of the book, so that is to be expected to an extent, but it just feels like the main kind of goal or like plot to this book is that they're trying to look for Sophie and her brother Emil. I think we don't even know if Sophie's alive. We think Sophie's alive, but we're not sure, and we're pretty sure that Emil is alive, but we have no idea where they are. And it basically feels like an episode of like Dora the Explorer at this point, because they're just like, oh, let's go here. They go there, Sophie and Emil, nowhere to be found. They're like, oh, what about here? So they go over there, and they don't find them, so they go somewhere else, and they don't find them. And it just feels a little bit repetitive at this point, and also just like kind of disheartening, because we haven't really got a lot of like clues, I guess. Like, we don't really know where they are or what they're doing. We only know that they're not here, they're not here, they're not here, they're not here. And so I'm kind of just like, okay, like the last 200 pages, like what have we got? We have got little pieces of information that are interesting, but as a whole, it's just like, Okay. But also Sarah J Maas, like her books are not the ones that you can just like skim. Like you need to be paying attention to every single detail, because even amongst the past like couple hundred pages, we have found out things like Ethan might become an alpha. Like he has the traits of an alpha, and the big wolf king guy was like, you could be an alpha if you want to be. They also went and saw the mystic person, and I don't really understand what that whole thing was about, and I don't think they found out really anything helpful there. We know that Danica is a bloodhound. We also found out who Danica's dad is. He's just some big bad guy. We don't like him apparently. Hunt and Bryce still are obsessed with each other. They're like, are we mates? Maybe. And to be honest, like I like Bryce and Hunt together. I think they're good for each other, but they're also like, they're together. We know they're in love with each other, like move on. And I feel like Sarah J Maas has tried to like add Ethan in to make it a bit of like a love triangle situation, but there's really no love triangle. Like it's really just like Ethan being like, I'm in love with Bryce, and Bryce being like oblivious, and Hunt also just being obsessed with Bryce being obsessed with Hunt. Like there's no love triangle. It's just Ethan being sad. And to be fair, at the start I didn't love Ethan, but I have like he has definitely grown on me a lot since the beginning, but I feel really bad for him. He was in love with Bryce as soon as he saw her, and then he found out like, oh my gosh, this is Bryce, like I can't be in love with her, my brother's in love with her, which obviously would suck so bad. And then he lost his brother and was obviously devastated at that, but secretly like, now's finally my chance that I can like hit on Bryce, or like there might be something there. And then as soon as it's like finally his chance to do that, Hunt steps in and is like, I've known her for 5 months, but she's literally obsessed with me now, and you've known her for like years and years, you've been best friend for years, but don't even try. Like she's not even interested. And I'm like, that does suck for Ethan. I can't help but feel bad for him, but also like Sarah J Maas always pairs up her characters, so surely he'll have a different love interest at some point. And the other thing that's kind of annoying me right now is Danica is still like showing up in this book. She's been dead since 100 pages into the first book, yet the first book almost revolved around her plot-wise. And then we had some really great closure at the end of the first book. We really closed the chapter on Danica, and I was kind of good, because first of all, she was just like never even that nice. But everyone was so obsessed with her. Everyone's like, we love Danica. Danica is the best. We miss her so much. And like understandable, but like I only got 100 pages of seeing her to begin with. So of course I'm not really gonna care that much about her, especially when she didn't even appear like a good friend. And so I was happy to be done with her in the first book. And then in this book, we continue to have references. Danica had a secret, she's a bloodhound. I don't care. I don't care who she is. I just want her gone. Sarah J Maas, please. We had the conclusion. We had the closure. Let's move on. Find something else. But Bryce is still like, oh my gosh, like Danica had secrets that I still don't know about. And the more I find out about her, the more I realize I never knew her at all. Well, yeah, all we know about Danica at this point is that she just keeps having more and more secrets. So I don't know why you continue to be surprised every time a new secret pops up. It's just so frustrating to me why we still care so much about Danica. But apart from that, I'm having a good time. Like, it's okay, it's fine. I'm enjoying it, and I think it's just because I'm in the middle, so like there's not a great deal happening, but also once you get past that halfway point, things are gonna get crazy, I feel like. Also, another thing that I didn't mention is like Rune's little, I want to say subplot, that might be incorrect, but his little situation that he has with him being the messenger. I don't even know how to explain it. The whole like night and day thing, like when he is unconscious or asleep, he can go and talk to Day, like almost like through his mind kind of. I don't really know how to explain that either. I promise I'm paying attention, but as soon as I have to explain my thoughts out loud, apparently I just simply can't. Rune is talking to this female through his mind. Both Rune and this female are staying anonymous to each other as well, so like they don't know who each other are, but I am very intrigued to know who she is. And I will say like that plot, like that little side plot with Rune is probably the part of the book that I'm most interested in. I don't know why, but that little like anonymous love story, well, they're not even like supposed to be falling in love. They're like kind of flirting a little bit, but it is still like very subtle. Like they're at the very beginning stage of that. It's still so fun. And I'm gonna keep reading, and my battery's about to die. Still reading. Another thought that I have, kind of two thoughts. First of all, why does Jessica know so much information? Like there is something going on with Jessica that we do not fully understand, and that these characters do not fully understand, because she just knows too much. I know that she had the little moment with the cat guy at the end of the first book. I don't really fully understand what that was all about. But then also, every time Bryce calls her to be like, oh, can you help me with this thing, or do you know this thing, or blah blah blah, like she always knows what's going on, or she'll always be like, oh, maybe you should have a look at this, or maybe you should reconsider why Bryce was always visiting you at work. Like, why does she know so much? That is what I want to know. And second of all, to go along with that, like I said, every time Bryce calls her to be like, oh, do you know this, or can you help me with this, Jessica always knows. Why hasn't Bryce like thought more about that? Like, why hasn't she been like, that's a little bit suspicious that Jessica just has so much intel. Maybe I should ask her more. Maybe I should try and just like get more info out of her. But she never does. Anyways, I'm gonna keep reading. I also totally forgot to talk about this earlier, and I feel like this is an important thing to talk about. We also have the situation where Bryce's star is like glowing, but only sometimes. Like, why does it only glow around some people? What does the glow mean? What does the star do? So we just got confirmation that Bryce and Hunt are mates. I don't know why I'm surprised, because like obviously they were going to be mates, but also there's always the chance that they might not be, but we finally got the confirmation, so love that for them. What are the chances that the girl who is being like held as like kind of a slave, kind of a prisoner by the astronomer, and we recently found out she's a wolf, like what are the chances that Ethan and her are going to fall in love later? I love how when Bryce is trying to explain how her and Hunt's powers merged together, she said, yeah, we went all glowy and then we teleported. Like, that is exactly how I would have explained it if I was Bryce. Yeah, we just like went all glowy. Like, imagine Sarah J Maas just like tip tap typing away. How can I explain this? We went all glowy. Perfect. I'm sorry if you can hear the dishwasher, but we have some progress. We found Emil, and freaking Bryce knew where he was almost the whole time. That is such an Aelin Galathinius thing to do. Like, literally they were searching for him and Bryce already knew where he was. Like, basically had him hidden. And it's like, I'm not gonna lie, so smart of her, so like mastermind of her, but also so annoying as the reader to have gone through so much repetitive parts of this book that just like didn't need to exist. But anyways, we also found out he has no power, which is so interesting, and Bryce just wanted to protect him because she felt bad for him, which is really nice of her, but just like so interesting. Not what I was expecting at all. And so I guess now we're trying to find out what Sophie's secret was, because apparently Sophie is dead. Part of me is like, surely not, but then the other part of me is like, everyone who they've been like, she's dead, they've kind of been like, yeah, I kind of knew in my soul that she was gone. So I feel like she's got to be dead if people are kind of saying that. Because like I've said before, just because Sarah J Maas kills a character doesn't mean they're actually dead. Or at least just because we think someone's dead doesn't mean they're actually dead. But I'm also kind of just shocked that we found Emil, because we're like 500 pages in. So like, what's this? Because I thought the whole plot was basically finding Emil, finding Sophie, and I guess like finding out their secrets. So I guess maybe this part is still just finding out the secrets. Also, I freaking love the whole side plot that's going on with Ethan stealing the box of sprites and the dragon, and now the boys just have a bunch of sprites as like housemates. I think that's actually hilarious. It's giving major bad boy energy, and I love that. Good morning. It's like 6:30. I've been awake for a little bit. I'm just kind of hanging out with Lee. But last night I ended up getting up to, I think like, where did we get up to? Chapter 57, page 620, which is so good. So I have like 180-ish pages to read this morning. I'm gonna try and smash through it because I'm so intrigued to find out like what's gonna happen. Do you like my pajamas? So cute. I can't believe that I thought that Day was either Celestina, I don't know, or Hypaxia, and turns out those two are in love. How stupid could I be? It honestly kind of makes sense. Who the frick is Day? Someone explain. Just finished chapter 64. What a freaking doozy. But right at the end, we found out that Baxian was Danica's mate. And that's why he continues to just kind of like show up and help them. As much as I've said, I'm so sick of Danica just kind of like popping up being like, I have another secret, guys. That makes things kind of interesting. Also, I'm now at page 696. So basically 100 pages to go. And I am just like bring it on. But we still don't know who Agent Day is, who Rune seems to be kind of in love with, but she found out who he is. Also, the wolf that has been trapped by the astronomer. I don't understand why we haven't continued that storyline. Like, obviously Ethan went and saved the sprites and the dragon, and they have kind of been, well, at least the dragon, Ari, she's kind of like popped up again and like been involved in the story, and now she's like a fighter in the meat market, so that's kind of interesting. But like, I really thought, and maybe she will, but like I really thought that the wolf was going to have a bit more of a storyline there, and that Ethan would go back and save her somehow, but we haven't got anything there. I feel like the Emil storyline is kind of mostly summed up. I don't know, I really don't know what's going to happen. And I've seen so many people say that the last like 10 or 20 pages of this book are like crazy, and I have like not even an inkling as to what could be happening or like what could happen at the end of this book. The only thought that I do have is maybe that's where there is some sort of reveal as to how this book and how Crescent City links to ACOTAR and Throne of Glass. Like maybe a character from Throne of Glass or ACOTAR will show up. I just don't know. Just made it to chapter 71, which means that I have about 50 pages left, and I'm kind of shocked because whilst things are happening, plans have been made and they've started to execute said plans, it still feels too calm and it's making me nervous. Page 755. It says, Cormac hadn't just gone rogue, he'd never intended to get out of here alive. Unfortunately, I really did suspect that Cormac might die. Mostly just because he just seemed so hopeless. Like he had so much hope for Bryce and for Rune, but so hopeless about himself. So it makes a lot of sense that he would kind of like potentially sacrifice himself for them to be able to get further, or for him to sacrifice himself so that obviously there was just like more of a chance of them living. But it's also really sad because I feel like Cormac just became so nice and kind of just like part of their little found family. So in the first book we found out that Micah killed Danica and the rest of the wolves in her pack, but we just found out that Micah was kind of not forced, but he was made to do that by the Asiri. So like, yes, Micah still did what he did, but like there was an overarching power that kind of caused him to do that. This is what I mean by Sarah J. Maas. Like as soon as you think you know what's going on, it's like, you don't quite know. There's something deeper, there's more secrets. Crazy. And I guess they killed Danica because she just had found out too much information, because she really was doing the research. She knew a lot of info, so it definitely makes sense why they killed her. We found out who Day is. Lydia. No way. I did not expect that. Wow. And she tried to save Sophie. Okay, I'm up to chapter 76. We have 20 pages left. No. We're not saying goodbyes. No, 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 no. None of you will be dying. Absolutely not. So the star on Bryce's chest, Ridgula said, it's a beacon to the world from which the Fae originally came. It sometimes glows when nearest the Fae who have undiluted bloodlines from that world. It also glows for those who you choose as your loyal companions, knights. And now Bryce is like sacrificing herself, basically saying, I will help you get back to that world and use the star glowy power if you let Rune and Hunt go. Which is like good because obviously I want Rune and Hunt to be safe, but like, what does that even mean? Guys, I'm so nervous. This is how much I have left. 10 pages. I don't even know what to expect. I don't even quite understand what's going on, to be honest. Bryce just got like taken to another dimension or something. I don't even know. Please don't let Hunt die. Dark scale-like armor over a tall, muscled body, wings, great black wings. Surely a bat boy. Surely. Paint. Farah. She ended up in the ACOTAR world. Huh? I actually feel like I'm gonna cry just because I'm so overwhelmed. Now I understand why people say that the ending of this book is wild. What the freaking heck? I don't even know what to say. I think I just need to process for a little while. I can't believe this is over. And I can't believe it ended like that. Oh my gosh. It's been a little while since I finished these books, so I feel like I've really had the time to completely process all of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And here's what I think. They've both got to be 5 stars. I know that I had some critiques, mostly for the second one, I would say. And maybe like technically, the second one should be like a 4.75 or a 4.5. However, this is my channel, my reading, my rules, so I'm going to rate them both 5 stars because I really did just have so much fun reading both of these books. Like, you can literally see my emotions whilst I'm reading. Like, not every book causes me to react the way that these books did. And I feel like that in itself makes a book 5 stars. And also, if you think about it afterwards, and I have definitely thought about both of these books since completing them, I feel like that's also a bit of like a 5-star situation as well. So both of these are going to be 5 stars, but I will say I think my favorite was book 1. I feel like the plot was just better in book 1, and also just like the tension and like the romance I personally feel was better in book 1, because obviously in book 2 it was fairly established. Like, I feel like Sarah J Maas like tried to make it not seem as established, but it was like we all know how this is gonna go. Like, we all know that they already love each other, we already know that they're both together, so the romance just wasn't as good in the second one. And I am a romance girly at heart, we do know that. So I think the first one overall is the winner to me. However, I did have so much fun reading the second book as well. I think I just got a little bit more bored in the second book. Like, in the middle, it felt a little bit dragged on, a little bit repetitive when they were like looking for Emil and Sophie and were just like looking everywhere, couldn't find them. Like, that part wasn't my favorite, but I love that we got to know the characters so much better, and I feel like I can really see that found family forming. It has formed to some extent, but I feel like there's still so much potential for it to grow even further in the next book. I also just really like Rune as a character, and I'm really excited to see more from him, hopefully in the next book. And I also loved his storyline in this book with Day, Agent Day. That truly was the part of the book that I was so intrigued about, and like just really wanted to know what was going to happen with that. And I also really didn't like Ethan at the beginning of this book, but by the end I was also so intrigued in his storyline, and I'm still so intrigued to see what happens with him in the next book, because again, I feel like there's so much potential. And obviously the ending of this freaking book is insane. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. I just didn't expect it to be so obvious, I think. I've heard people talk about the whole like Megaverse thing, and I thought it was more gonna be something that was like hinted at rather than like explicitly written on the pages. Like, it is so clear who the characters are, and like, well, obviously if you've read the ACOTAR books, like, you know so clearly the hints and things that we got. And the fact that a literal line in this book says, "Hello, Brass Quinlan. My name is Rhysand." Like, what? That is just, I don't know, like, I could have so easily been spoiled for this book and for this ending specifically, and I'm so glad that I wasn't. So thank you to all of the fans out there that didn't spoil this for me. Please don't spoil it for any of your friends, because it's just so much fun getting to read it for yourself and like find out for yourself. I really love these books. I had so much fun. I'm so glad I read them. Overall, I do think at this point in time, the Crescent City series is my least favorite out of Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, and Crescent City, but I also think that there is potential for that to change in the future when more books are brought out. But I just like need more of a found family for me to really like be obsessed. So it's my least favorite, but still loved it. So I hope you guys liked this video. I'm sorry that it was so long. I didn't expect it to be such a long video. If you guys liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but please keep it spoiler free for those people who might not have read this series yet. And also let me know if you want more reading vlogs in the future. I again don't think they'd be this long typically, because we read 2 800-page books in this video. I just had so much fun filming this, so let me know if you want to see more like this in the future. But I love you guys so much. I hope you have the best day, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Goodbye.